who are going about and claiming that Islam calls to the likes of these matters. What is a more fair and just question is, what does Islam say about these things? And what does Islam say about these people who do these things? That is the just question and the more correct question. And as we have just heard from the Quran, where from the things that we have been prohibited are to murder people and take the life of people unjustly. Also Allah says in another verse in the noble Quran, because of that we ordained for the children of Israel that if anyone killed a person, not because of a life for a life, or because they were spreading corruption in the earth, it would be as if they killed all of mankind. And if anyone saved a life, it would be as if they saved the life of all mankind. Islam teaches us that the act of murder is so evil and so heinous, it is as if you have killed a number of people. You have taken the life of a whole group of people. And that when you save a life, it is as if you have saved the life of all of mankind. This is how precious human life is to the religion of al-Islam. So let it be known and let it be said that this is what Islam teaches with regard to the sanctity of human life. And also Allah says in the Quran, and do not kill anyone which Allah has forbidden except for a just cause. And the example of a just cause is a life for a life. Someone murders someone, then their life is taken for, as we call, the death penalty. And whoever is killed intentionally with hostility and oppression and not by mistake, we have given his heir the authority to demand the law of equality, a life for a life, as we have mentioned, or to forgive, or to take the blood with money, the payment of compensation. But let him not exceed the limits in the matter of taking life. Verily he is helped by the Islamic legislation. So this verse shows us again that Allah has forbade murder. He has forbidden murder and has called it oppression and hostility in this particular verse. And also we find another verse in the Quran where Allah talks about the true worshippers. Allah talks about his true worshippers, and he says, and those who do not call upon any God besides Allah, nor do they take a life Allah has forbidden except for just cause. And as we've mentioned from that, a life for a life. Nor commit illegal sexual intercourse. And whoever does these acts shall receive the punishment. So in this particular verse, Allah has mentioned that whoever commits these acts of major sin, they will be punished not only in this life, but they will be punished by their Creator in the next life. So let no one fool you into believing that Islam condones these actions. Let no one fool you into believing that Islam accepts the likes of these actions. Rather, they are condemned and they are from the greatest of sins in our religion. In an authentic narration that comes from the companion of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, where the Prophet Muhammad said, there is no soul that murders someone unjustly except that there is upon the first son of Adam, Cain, a portion of the blood, because he was the first to commit murder. So again, we see that this crime of murder is something that is inherited. And the person who does so, the one that he learned it from, or the likes of this, receives something of the punishment, something of the blame for falling into the likes of that sin. Also, so for those who believe or they argue that the blood of the non-Muslim is permissible because they have no rights, for those who make this claim and they make this statement, let it be understood from the authentic narration of our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, upon the authority of his companion Abu Hurairah, where he said, whoever kills a mu'ahid, the non-Muslim, of which there is an agreement of tranquility and peace between them, whoever kills this non-Muslim will not smell the fragrance of paradise. And indeed, its fragrance can be smelled for a distance of 40 years. So this crime of murdering the non-Muslim in this fashion unjustly is from those things that the Prophet has mentioned will inhibit or prohibit an individual from smelling the beautiful fragrance of paradise. So after hearing these narrations, can anyone claim that Islam condones the likes of these matters? Rather, they must be just and honorable and say that Islam is from the harshest and hardest against the likes of these crimes and transgressions against mankind. The great scholar of Islam, whose name was Muhammad ibn Ahmed al-Dhahabi, he wrote a monumental work known as Al-Kaba'ir, the major sins. And he counted murder second only to associating partners in worship with Allah. This is in keeping with the ordering that we find in those verses that we mentioned, where Allah says, and those who do not call upon any God besides Allah, nor take the life that Allah has forbidden. So after associating partners in worship, polytheism, the worst sin mentioned that can be committed is the crime of murder. After mentioning what Islam says about murder, we move on to the second affair of the crime of armed robbery. Those who go about in the earth with their illegal weapons, causing fear and anxiety amongst the citizens of our nation and amongst our towns and our cities and our countries. Allah says about them in the holy book, the noble book, the Quran, indeed the recompense, indeed the reward of those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger. Now I want us to understand quickly what I'm saying here. Allah has said that those people who brandish their weapons and shake the society and bring fear to society and enter into banks and rob people and hijack people upon the highways and carjack and all of these things, Allah has described them as being at war with Allah and His Messenger. Does Islam condone it? Allah said they're at war with Allah and His Messenger. So how can anyone claim that Islam condones the likes of these matters? And Allah goes on in the ayat, in the meaning of the ayat, and says, and those who spread corruption in the earth, their recompense, their reward is to be put to death. Their reward and their recompense is to be put to death, to the end of that verse. And after this verse, Imam al-Dhahabi, that great scholar as we had mentioned, he says concerning the meaning of this verse, he said, so the mere act of causing fear in society is a major sin. The mere act of causing fear to people in society is a major sin in Islam. So how much more if they rob people? Adding on top of causing fear, now they're robbing people. And how much more if they kill someone? Or how much more if they do any number of sins? Any number of sins that we find these individuals committing. There's a story that further clarifies Islam's position with those who go about in the earth with their weapons, and they rob banks, and they hijack cars, and they carjack people, and the likes of these affairs. There's a further narration, authentic tradition of our Prophet that shows the firm stance that Islam has against these actions. In the authentic book of the scholar Imam al-Bukhari, the great scholar Bukhari, he brings a narration that there came a group of people to the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, to pledge allegiance to him and to enter Islam. So they dwelt in the city of the Prophet for a time, but they became sick. Meaning they were from a different region, and when they came and began to eat of the foods and the likes of this, they became sick. They had some stomach ailments. So the Prophet advised them to go out to the desert area and to drink from the milk of the camel, as the drinking of the milk of the camel was known to be a good cure, a good treatment for this type of stomach ailment. So they went out to this desert area amongst some of the shepherds, and once they began to drink from the milk of the camels and the likes of this, when they were cured from their sickness, what they did was they took up their weapons and they killed the shepherd. They murdered him. And then they stole his flock. They stole his flock of animals, his sheep. So what happened when the word got back to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that these individuals had done this? The Prophet, who was the leader of the society at that time, he sent out a search party to capture these individuals. And once they were captured and brought back, the Prophet ordered that they be put to death. The Prophet ordered that these individuals be put to death. They were given the death penalty. So there is no question whatsoever. What is the reward in the religion of Islam and the recompense for those who go about causing murder in the earth and those who go about with their weapons, robbing people and harming people? They have been described as being at war with Allah and at war with His Messenger, and their reward is to be put to death. Now some people may consider this a very harsh punishment.